Come out with us and play. Love your London. Have a banana. Welcome to our long overdue part 4 of our travels around Bayswater and Notting Hill. We have refunded our patrons for all of the time that we have not been releasing content, and we thank you for your patience. In today's episode of Love Your London, we'll be visiting the site of one of the country's many so-called houses of horror, talking about an area which declared independence from the rest of London in the 1970s, and speak to someone who was brought up there. We'll be explaining why this strange building appears on an area known as Cutthroat Lane, the mysterious death of Jimi Hendrix, plus more on Notting Hill Carnival, as well as Gregory and Craig Sams, the two entrepreneurial brothers who were instrumental in introducing healthy food and counterculture to the area. But we start, as we often do, at one of the area's many stations. Hello, and welcome to episode 4 of our series on Bayswater to Ladbroke Grove, including all the Portobello market stuff that we covered in the last episode. But we're here at Ladbroke Grove station. Not an awful lot we can say about this station, a bit like the other ones, but it's called Ladbroke Grove, as you can see, and it's one of the ones to come to if you want to come to the market. It was actually called Notting Hill when it opened in 1864. It has had quite a few name changes over the years, finally being called Ladbroke Grove after the street in 1938. Apparently some people want it changed to Portobello Road, which is ludicrous as it's not on Portobello Road, and we did that in the last episode. Anyhow, it's in Fare Zone 2, it's on the Hammersmith and City line and the Circle line. Like all the stations in this general area that we've been dealing with in this series, there are no toilets, and as always there's no disabled access. It's good, there's no step-free access at all. Just steps and stuff, really bad. So as I said, this is Ladbroke Grove, and it's named after the wealthy landowning family, the Ladbrokes, who owned all the land around here in the 1700s. In 1819, Richard Ladbroke passed the land down to his nephew James Weller on the proviso that in order to inherit it, he must change his name. So he did to James Weller Ladbroke. And when the housing boom happened in the 1820s, James encouraged developers to build housing here, and hence why this street and a number of others around here are named after him. And there's quite a lot, not just Ladbroke Grove, but there's a Ladbroke Crescent, a Ladbroke Gardens, a Ladbroke Road, a Ladbroke Square, a Ladbroke Terrace and a Ladbroke Walk. But we're now going to just check out number 145A, Ladbroke Grove, a little thing to show you there. It now says Grove Fish Bar, which actually, it says Grove Fish Bar 1963, which is actually a bit confusing. I think that used to be Grove Fish Bar. They must have just moved, because last time I was here, I'm sure it's where that KFC is now. We're not here to talk about fish. We're here to talk about what's actually used to be upstairs, just in that flat up there, in 145A. That used to be the flat of the NME journalists Vivian Goldman and Chris Salovich. And it was a real musicians' hangout. Members of the Clash and the Sex Pistols often visited, and Chrissy Hynde from the Pretenders even stayed there for a while. Now this pub here, the Knight of Notting Hill, this used to be until very recently the Kensington Park Hotel. And it's upstairs where Tom Jones had his very first London gig in 1960, and he was paid £10 for it, which is about £240 in today's money. Now we're going to go down Lancaster Road, and you see this amazing building that's coming up there on your left, just literally down here. The number 111 to 117 at Lancaster Road. Now that used to be the London Lighthouse building where the Terence Higgins Trust was based, the country's leading HIV and AIDS charity. That has since moved to Caledonian Road, and the building now houses the Museum of Brands. And the Museum of Brands actually itself moved down to London from Gloucester Docks in Gloucester a few years ago. And this museum is all about packaging from Victorian times to the present day. Now, most museums in London are free, as you know. This is one of the very few that you have to pay for.
And this time last year, it cost just £11.50 for an adult for a daytime entry. But the price is now £14, which is an over 20% rise in just 12 months. They're also the only London exhibition space who would not give us a complimentary ticket in the 5 years that we've been running this channel, in spite of sending them a very nice email in advance. So we're just going to show you what you can see for free in the reception and in the cafeteria.
Yeah. So we can't really, at the moment we sort of like really need your support. You can support us financially by using our Patreon link, which really helps. But if you can't do that, then obviously there are ways that you can also help us by sharing our videos, by commenting on in the YouTube comments. That helps. Like us, do subscribe to us. There's a little thing there. Hit that notification bell if you haven't done so already. If you have already done it, don't do it, because you'll then turn the notifications off. But yes, if we became a going concern, then we wouldn't think twice about paying £11.50 to come here. And also there'd also be a lot more amenable to let us come in for free, because we'd be well-known vloggers. And right now we've only got a very small but dedicated fan base. We need to up that fan base. Let's now see a few more things in this local area. Wow, check out that car. What is this? This is a Scimitar SS1 1600. I love it. Not very convenient, it's a two-seater, but it's a fantastic car. And right here we have Wesley Square. Now Wesley Square wasn't always called Wesley Square. It has another name which is quite well known. Its name used to be Rillington Place, and this here was where 10 Rillington Place used to be. Just down here. It's not called that anymore. This whole area was redeveloped, understandably. So we're not just going to tell you the story. I mean, if you know anything about horrible, miscarriages of justice, and also horrible, grim stories. You probably know all about this already, but we're just going to give you a very quick overview of the story of 10 Rillington Place and what happened here. So, number 10 is roughly sort of over there, and it's there where John Christie used to live. He was an evil man who was a serial rapist and a serial killer. He killed at least 8 people in the 1940s and 1950s, including his wife Ethel and his neighbour Beryl Evans and their baby daughter Geraldine. Now, poor Timothy Evans, who was Beryl's wife and of course father to Geraldine, was accused of killing his wife and daughter and was hanged in 1950, with John Christie being the main prosecution witness. And thinking he'd got away with it, John Christie then went on to commit 4 more murders. And it wasn't until 1953, 3 years later, when John Christie moved out and they discovered all the bodies. Some were in a wallpapered alcove in the kitchen, the wife was under the floorboards in the front room, and others were buried in the garden. So John Christie himself was hanged in 1953, but it wasn't until 2004 that the High Court fully acknowledged that Timothy Evans didn't murder either his wife or his child. Actually, Timothy Evans was a regular of that pub we just saw, where Tom Jones had his first gig. Had poor Timothy Evans not been framed in 1950 and hanged, he probably would have been at that Tom Jones gig 10 years later. But what more to tell you about this? Well, this is one of the major examples of miscarriages of justice that eventually ended with the end of capital punishment in the UK. Just earlier that same year, in July 1953, 19-year-old Derek Bentley was hanged, and also for a crime that he did not commit. But we're going to talk about him when we get to C for Croydon in a couple of years.
And if you would like to receive cut-priced copies of the movie starring Christopher Eccleston about the Derek Bentley case, Let Him Have It, or the amazing movie starring Richard Attenborough as John Christie in the 1971 film 10 Rillington Place, or indeed the haunting book that the movie is based on by Ludovic Kennedy, you can use our affiliate links for some amazingly good offers.
Now, we've been talking about murder. Unfortunately, this is not the only place around here where some terrific, horrific murders happened. Just over there, we see one of the most horrific examples of murder that we have seen in recent times. That there is the Grenfell Tower. We are not going to be talking about this in this episode. We've got a special episode coming up after this, and it's going to be completely dedicated to the horror that was Grenfell Tower and what happened. We're going to be showing you a lot of the things about the memorial wall. We're going to be talking to Elizabeth Harrington Stravoravdis, who is one of the people who are helping seek justice for the Grenfell victims, and also knew some of the people who were there. Her kids used to play with people who unfortunately passed. We're going to be talking all about that in the next episodes, and we're going to be looking at the memorial walls and everything. That'll be the next episode in this series. It's going to be a special. It's going to be all about Grenfell. It's going to be very moving, but very, very important. And so there's lots of stories to tell you. But anyway, we're going to save that for then.
Check out the headlights. New headlights on a busted fender. It's brilliant.
I think I'll have one.
Yeah, you can't pass that without taking a photo. 1968. It's a lovely old car, isn't it?
Have a look at the front end of this thing. It's called Rocky 1. He looks like he's been have a look at the front of that truck.
Yeah, so this is the Pig and Whistle. We're going to go for a little quick, swift drink in here. It is the best pub, to be honest, around here. Most of the pubs, and we spent £7.60 for a pint of cider in the previous episode. Here, £3.80 for a pint of Strongbow. £3.80. Now you have to go to a Wetherspoon for something, anything remotely like that. There aren't any around here. So, and this is a proper pub. A lot of Irish clientele. What we love about it is as soon as you actually go through the door, you walk right into the area where people are playing darts. Hopefully not playing darts today. I love that. Lovely old pub. It's one of the few pubs around here that still has real character. It's won a lot of awards over the years for Pub of the Year, voted by the local people in this area, and it's yes, it's got a lot of obviously a lot of Irish people here as well, and it's also got obviously a lot of people who witnessed right from here the absolutely horrendous tragedy that happened just behind me at the moment. This pub, seriously recommended by Love Your London. Cool, well, that was cool. That was Pig and Whistle, and we've got a very, very swift thing to talk about here about Latimer Road Station, which is again we're going to keep it short because there's not very much to say about this station, unfortunately. It opened in 1866. And the strange thing is, it's actually named after Latimer Road, which is quite a long way away from here. In fact, Latimer Road is the other side, it's about half a kilometre away on the other side of the flyover, although it did come down here a little bit into what is now Frestonia Road before the flyover was built. But even so, it was never actually right here. And it's named after another landowner, Edward Latimer, spelt with a Y instead of an I. And just like the other stations, it's on both the Circle Line and the Hammersmith and City Line, and it's in Zone 2. And unfortunately, just like all the other stations around here, there's no toilets, and there's no disabled access. It's not accessible, no step-free access at all. Really bad, but there's nothing really more to tell you about the station, so let's move on towards Frestonia Road, which is where we've got quite a bit to say. And now for a very important announcement. We're no stranger to love. You know the rules, and so do I. It's just commitment that I'm thinking of. You wouldn't get this from just some other guy. I just want to tell you what I'm feeling. Gotta make you understand. Never gonna give you up. Never gonna let you down. Never gonna tell a lie and hurt you. Never gonna make you cry. Never gonna say goodbye. Never gonna tell a lie and hurt you. There you go. That's we just rickrolled you, didn't we? And why did we do that? Well, this is the legendary spot where the music video, the outdoors part of the Rick Astley song, which has gained millions, if not billions, of views now because of the whole Rick-rolling meme. This is where it's filmed, the outdoors bit. As you can see on your screen now, this is where it was filmed. And the indoor shots were filmed at the Harrow Club. All the interior shots of the video, Never Gonna Give You Up, were filmed just here. And next door to it, we have a little place. This is number 191 Frestonia Road. It's now Catch-22 Include London. Now, we spoke a lot earlier about Greg and Craig Sams in our previous episodes. And we also spoke about the macrobiotic restaurant Seed, which started after Brother Craig started hanging out at the Paradox in New York in 1966, where Yoko Ono was working, and decided to start off an illegal venue up underneath a residential block at 10A Airlie Gardens before moving underneath the George Hotel at 36A Westbourne Terrace. We spoke about Ceres, the whole food shop that started off next to Mangrove on 8A All Saints Road, and then moved to 269A Portobello Road. Actually, I've just noticed that all those addresses have an A after the number, funnily enough. Now, at the end of the last episode, I mentioned that they were soon getting massive orders for all these new healthy products from shops and restaurants across the UK and Europe. And so Harmony Foods was born. And this was one of the many locations across London, 191 Frestonia Road. I mean, it was really tiring work, sort of like shifting all this food that people were asking for initially. I mean, Greg, who, as you know, is wheelchair bound, used to go around London picking up all these various different food items for their cafe and to sell on, going to various Turkish places and Greek places and Iranian, Persian places and stuff like that. It was really hard work and he had to travel around. So what Harmony Foods did is that they brought it all here as a one-stop shop where people could, where they could sort of sell it out to various different restaurants and to shops as well, to the trade, and they shifted in the end. I mean, they had a lot of venues around London. This is one of the main ones here in Frestonia or Frestonia, and they shifted hundreds of tons in all every week. He created a new company, Relief, and invented the very first veggie burger, which took the world by storm. He even trademarked the name veggieburger, which certainly put the meat traders' noses out of joint, as seen here on your screen in this 1984 article from the Meat Trades Journal, with Greg Sams tucking into a veggieburger on the cover. Now, you will notice, of course, that veggieburger is spelt veggie burger. It's not how you normally spell it. That's because Greg trademarked the name veggie burger. Nowadays, people who want to create other burgers, they write it veggie burger with IE. Anyway, it wasn't long before Greg was selling 250,000 veggie burgers a week. And so, just before his 40th birthday, he sold the company after running it very successfully for 6 years and took early retirement. Well, Sorta, because 2 years later, in 1990, he set up the Strange Attractions shop dedicated to chaos theory on 204 Kensington Park Road. So there you go, that's a potted history of Craig and Craig Sams. We couldn't really come to this area without talking about them and the impact that they had on this area. Okay, so Frestonia. This is what we're really looking forward to telling you all about. And what can we tell you? Well, we're in the middle of Frestonia now. It looked quite different in the old days. I mean, this was all squats. After the new Westway was built, or while it was being built, a lot of the properties were evacuated here to the south and were laying empty and derelict. So 100 or so squatters moved into properties here on Frestonia Road and on a neighbouring Bramley Road. They rigged up electricity and water, fixed the roofs, because when the people who owned the properties, they left them to be abandoned, they actually destroyed the roofs so that people wouldn't move into them. But the squatters, when they moved in, they had to fix the roofs to make them livable again, managed to connect the electricity and water to live there as a community. And they set up a housing co-op. Now, of course, the authorities wanted them out. So, taking inspiration from the 1949 Ealing comedy Passport to Pimlico, as well as what they had seen in Christopher in Copenhagen, they decided to call a referendum on independence, which returned 94% in favour. And another 73% also voted in favour of joining the EEC, were Britain to come out of it. And well, on the 31st of October 1977, they declared independence as the Free and Independent Republic of Frestonia. So this was, as I said, a proper micronation, one that not only lasted quite a while, but was extremely successful. The actor David Rappaport was a foreign minister. You may remember, if you're a fan of Tiswas in the old days, he was a little person who played the character of Shades in Tiswas. And he was also the leader of one of the gangs in that amazing film Time Bandits, that I'm sure that many of you remember, by Terry Gilliam, the 1981 movie. The poet Heathcote Williams didn't actually live there, but he had friends here. So he was appointed Frestonia's ambassador to the United Kingdom. This is an amazing story. The Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer at the time, Sir Geoffrey Howe, he actually kind of, I know that he was in the Shadow Cabinet, but he approved of this whole, everything that was going on in a way, and he actually supported the idea because it reminded him of how much he enjoyed reading the G.K. Chesterton novel, The Napoleon of Notting Hill, as a child, which was a novel set in a future alternative reality in which Adam Wayne proudly becomes the Napoleon of Notting Hill. Now, you can read the book for free via a link in the description, by the way, so do check that out. And like all micronations, it had its own flag, which is this lovely flag that you can see now on your screens. As you can see, it has a vert background and a little oar circle in the middle, and the argent 11 petals around the corner. So it's like a daisy. I use those terms because, of course, when you're describing flags and other heraldic insignia, it's not green, it's vert. So there you go, a little bit of we're an educational channel. But basically, if people wanted to come and visit Frestonia, they had they needed to get a visa for their passport, and there was amazing widespread acceptance of what had happened, because everyone was really, the general population was so angry about what had happened about the Westway, and it had its own stamps. Like Cinderella stamps, they call them. Instead of the Queen on them, it had Gary the Gorilla. And these stamps, the very first time people used them to send out mail, I think the Royal Mail returned them. They said nope. So they just sent them out again. And in the end, the Royal Mail accepted them. And people could send letters out. I mean, I suppose it sort of like helped also that the stamps do look quite Danish. So when they left the UK, people just assumed that it was a legal stamp. But people successfully, you can see on your screen now a couple of examples. There is a letter sent to Denmark to the Extra Bladet newspaper, which arrived without any problems. They used to send. I mean, you see the 9D, the 9 pence stamps. They used to say that if you're sending to the UK, you'd use one stamp, that they call that near abroad, and if you wanted to send outside of the UK, they'd call it far abroad, and you'd use 2 stamps. They've become collector's items, and as I said, eventually they were accepted by the post office. And the Frestonians even petitioned to the United Nations for full membership. There's lots of articles here. I mean, there's lots to read about it on their website. There were also music studios, and The Clash recorded their album Combat Rock at Ear Studios, which was in the People's Hall, just back there. And it's one of the few buildings still remaining. Motorhead and Killing Joke also practiced there, among others. And this here, built in 1901, is the People's Hall. So eventually, when the people who lived here were moved out, they all adopted the surname Bramleys, and that's how, 120 or so people, they changed the name, and they made them hyphenated, Bramleys, and that way they ensured that when they were eventually moved by the council, they were housed more or less together in the same sort of area. Just over here, we have a little art gallery. It's a Frestonian gallery. It shows everything, but when it first opened, one of their first exhibitions in 2017 was to celebrate 40 years since Frestonia claimed independence, and it showed loads of photographs by Tony Sleep documenting those days. Obviously now it shows all kinds of art, but we're now going to move on towards an area known as Cutthroat Lane. We'll tell you why when we get there.
Oh, but before we visit Cutthroat Lane, let us introduce you briefly to local resident Adam Kish, who had left London before Frestonia happened in order to do some skateboarding in America and get off the drugs. But his mother lived in Frestonia while he was in America. Now he has some fascinating stories, but we'll be returning to him in our counterculture special. But here is what he had to say about his short visit to Frestonia.
We've been talking quite a bit about Frestonia and stuff like that. I'm actually here with Adam Kish, who I'm really, really happy to meet you. It is Kish, isn't it? Is that how you pronounce it?
Adam. I actually was doing my recovery when I left London.
Yes.
Before that, prior to that, there was no squatting in Kensington.
No, right.
Because they just send in nabbies at midnight.
Yeah.
And throw the hippies out. Well, smash the toilets.
Yes.
And that way you were illegal.
Yes, yeah.
And the police could take over.
Right.
But I did come back from my mum's funeral.
Yeah.
And went down to Frestonia very high.
Yeah.
And it was like a Wild West town. There was one street of derelict houses and lots of hairy people running around, or not. I can't really.
Did you remember having to get a visa and a passport stamped, or is that where they used to do that?
Well, of course, one of my major connections was Heathcote.
Heathcote, right?
And
yes.
Heathcote was the cream puff agency that he opened up in Kensington Park Road, Westbourne Park Road, from a squat, in which he'd type out all the squats available,
right,
and hand them out as the Rough Tough Cream Puff Agency. Right. And he was a very wild man, Heathcote.
Yes.
A sage. Every time you wind your watch, you screw yourself.
Right.
Well, you know his work. The guy was a genius.
Yeah.
And that must be where the naissance of Frestonia came around. I noticed that when places become permanent, it's because there's lawyers and mums with children and organised people organising the paperwork.
Yeah. When they finally closed it all down, one of the rather interesting things that they did is everyone changed their surname to Bramley's, so they'd all be rehoused in the same place.
Okay.
And that's sort of...
I lived with the wifey.
Yes.
I met the wifey at Bramley Market, where St Anne's Road meets Bramley Road.
Yep.
And Latimer Road, which was a kind of zigzag in the road. There was a bunch of shops there. Yeah. I keep seeing that pub in old black and white movies, and all the scrapyards behind it.
Yes.
The thing that really upsets the police is violence, which is kind of good, really.
Yeah.
I've never really thought of them as the enemy.
No.
Since there's always violent people about. Yeah. And they always arrive too late.
And I mean, can you...
Never involve the police if you can possibly help it. They will complicate it. Yeah.
Adam spoke for over an hour non-stop about the 60s, his various run-ins with Mark Bolan's muse, June Child, and showed us loads of his art. We'll be editing it heavily and incorporating it into the end of our video with Gregory Sams that will appear later this year. Back to Cutthroat Lane. So we are here on Cutthroat Lane. Well, it's not called Cutthroat Lane anymore, it's now called Walmer Road. After that, it was known as the Potteries and Piggeries. As you may guess, the Cutthroat Lane doesn't refer to anything too horrible. Well, it does if you're vegetarian, but basically refers to the piggeries that used to be here, the pig farms, and obviously the pig farmers would cut the throats of the pigs. So this became known as the piggeries, this area. The Potteries part refers to all the brick kilns that were here, set up because this was one of the main places where bricks were made. It was a horrible, horrible area to live. I mean, there was no running water. Child mortality was basically 87% in 1849. And all in this area around here, just over here, this was all full of holes of where they used to dig the earth and the clay in order to make the bricks. And those holes were full of sewage and pigs. In fact, one of the holes was so huge that it was nicknamed the Ocean. One of the kilns still remains to this day. It's no longer obviously a kiln, but it's really great that it remains. So this is what they used to look like, just here. Check it out. So, it's, as it says there, I'll read it to you in case you can't see it. This kiln is a reminder of the 19th century when potteries and brickfields were established here, amid some of the poorest housing conditions in London. It is one of the few examples of a bottle kiln left in London. The name of the mews behind is the only surviving evidence of the Hippodrome racecourse which stretched around to Notting Hill in the mid-19th century. Just over here, as you can see, which sort of like you can see here, this is called Hippodrome Place, obviously referring to the racecourse that is mentioned on that sign, and Pottery Lane goes down there, obviously a reference to the potteries. There is no Cutthroat Lane anymore, as you can see now. It's now Walmer Road. Sounds a lot posher. But anyway, on to the next place. But before we do, check out this amazing aquatint by Henry Alcon Jr. It shows the last steeplechase to be held at the Kensington Hippodrome in 1841. The racecourse had opened just 4 years prior, in 1837, and it was finally closed in 1842. And look, there is the kiln in the background, belching smoke. And now, through the magic of AI, let's give this scene a little more life. And here we are, number 52, Princedale Road. We spoke quite a lot in the last episode about psychedelia and counterculture. Obviously, we'll be talking a lot more about it in our special episode where we speak to Greg Sams. And we also spoke about Greg Sams and Greg Sams magazine's Seed and Harmony. Well, it's here at number 52 where another very famous countercultural magazine was published, an Australian one, funny enough, because this is where Oz was published. And Oz was published here between 1967 and 1973. It was an underground Australian newspaper, and Martin Sharp, who was one of the co-owners, created two great and very famous psychedelic album covers here for Cream, Disraeli Gears and Wheels on Fire. You can see them on your screen, and of course you can order them if you wish from our Amazon link, which is just another way that we can maybe get a few little pence towards our cause. And just next door to it, here at number 50, you'll see the blue plaque. It's not one of those official blue plaques, because obviously he's still alive, but he lived in, that says there, Stuart Copeland, American musician and composer, drummer of the Police, lived here from 2013 to 2020. Not one of the official ones, but still quite relevant. That Stuart Copeland was here. Obviously, it's not official because you don't get an official English heritage plaque until you're dead for 20 years. I actually have an application in the pipeline for Dudley Moore, which I made shortly after the 20th anniversary of his death, and they told me that the queue is quite long. So, yeah, this is not official. But there are other people who very famous, who live in this area and still do. Let's check out now number 4, Queensdale Place. Okay, so back in episode 11 on our Angel and Islington series, we visited the erstwhile home of Elton John, or Sir Elton John, of course, as we should now address him. And we visited a place, number 29 Furlough Road, where Elton John made a half-hearted attempt to end his own life by lying on the floor near his oven. You can see we actually reenacted that scene right in his kitchen. Obviously, kitchen's quite different now to how it looked then. He is now in a much happier place. And that is here, number 4, Queensdale Place. And he actually lives here still with his husband, David Furnish, whenever he's in London, which is quite often these days since he's given up gigging. Now, I wouldn't have told you this if this were a secret. It's on countless websites of celebrity homes. Hardly anyone watches us anyway, so we won't make much of a difference, will we? So please make sure that more people watch us. So that is in your hands. Make sure that you subscribe to our channel, share our videos on your social media, and if you can be a patron if you want, but that's fantastic. Comment, but really sharing and liking is what we wanted, subscribing and notifications. And talking of famous musicians, this is number 82 Ladbroke Road. This is where Brian Ferry lived with his then girlfriend Jerry Hall, and when she left him for Mick Jagger, Brian sold the house to John Cleese from Monty Python in 1977 for about $140,000. I'm not sure why it's in dollars, but that's what I found on a website. John Cleese then sold it in 2001 for $7.1 million. According to Zoopla and places like that, the current estimated value of this property is now, in pounds, $12,711,000. And we should add that now, in February 2026, the value is £14.5 million, with offers anticipated around the £15 million mark. Apparently, it increased in value by £766,000 just in the last month, though buyers need to be aware that to refurbish it would cost an extra £2.3 million, or you could rent it at just £60,710 per month. So quite a pricey property, and there is where John Cleese and Brian Ferry and Jerry Hall lived. So this is basically where Lansdowne Studios was between 1958 and 2006. They occupied the first floor, the ground floor and the basement. And it was the assistant engineer Joe Meek who actually found this location. Of course, Joe Meek being the amazing person who brought us Telstar by the Tornadoes. You know the one by now, but yes, so ground floor, basement, and not first floor. That was where it was based, and so many famous songs and albums have been recorded here. It would be crazy to list them all. Acker Bilk's Stranger on the Shore, part of Queen's Night at the Opera, loads of music by Shirley Bassey, the Sex Pistols, Sinead O'Connor, the list goes on and on. And I think now it's beer o'clock. I think we're now going to have a little quick drink where I'm going to tell you all about Notting Hill Carnival. Before we get to that drink, one place we visited earlier but omitted to include in our previous episode is number 22 Lansdowne Crescent, which is where the Samarkand Hotel used to be. In the early hours of the 18th of September 1970, Jimi Hendrix drove back with his girlfriend, Monica Danneman, to her flat, which was a long-term rental as part of the Samarkand. He died shortly afterwards, joining the likes of Jim Morrison, Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse, Brian Jones, Janis Joplin, and many, many more who are sadly part of the 27 Club. This photo was taken at this very hotel just 24 hours earlier. There's a lot of controversy over how Jimmy died, and if you're interested in it, the Wikipedia article, Death of Jimi Hendrix, is very well researched. You'll find a link to it in the YouTube description below. Okay, so we're here in the castle. £6.85 for a pint of very, very flat Aspel cider. I'm really disappointed. I mean, after paying £3.80 or whatever it was in that last place, the pig and whistle, this really hurts. But there you go. I mean, how's a hippie meant to live in London these days, I'll tell you. But we're here to tell you about a fascinating history of Notting Hill Carnival. And it started not in the way that you may think. Now, you're also going to be seeing quite a lot of footage on your screen taken from other YouTubers. We will be please check the description below in order to see the full footage, because obviously we want to encourage you to watch their videos. We're just going to give you a little teaser of some of them as we talk about it. Basically, Notting Hill Carnival transforms West London every August bank holiday weekend into Europe's biggest street festival. Over 2 million people fill the streets of W10 and W11 over those 2 days. That is, the Rio Carnival is 2 million a day, but 2 million over 2 days is not that far. It's like, well, half I suppose. And it's a fascinating, exciting carnival with a really interesting history. As I said, not what you'd think how it started. It started in a very interesting way. So Sunday is for families and Monday is for the Grand Parade. And of course, many join the festivities on Saturday night for the steel band competition. Now, the carnival's story began in the 1950s when London's Caribbean community, particularly those from Trinidad and Tobago, organised indoor festivals to combat racial tensions. In 1966, it took to the streets for the first time. Set up by Rowan Leslie in collaboration with John Hoppy Hopkins and the London Free School. So it had a real psychedelic beginning to it, to be honest. Since then, it's grown into a massive celebration that stretches across 5.6 kilometres of London streets. Today's carnival is an impressive operation. Over 40,000 volunteers and performers make it happen, including more than 70 performing stages and 38 sound systems. We had a look at the one earlier, which is where Gazmail has his sound system. Around 300 food stalls line the streets, serving up Caribbean classics like jerk chicken, curry goat and fresh coconuts, and the carnival contributes about £120 million to London's economy annually. The sound systems are really the carnival's heartbeat, with giant speakers set up at static points throughout the route, playing everything from reggae and calypso to soca and funk, but it's the maths that create the carnival's famous spectacle. Over 80 groups of masquerade performers in elaborate costumes dancing through the streets. Now, in earlier years, when the festival first started, the police's attitude was that they were there to try and actually stop the festival from happening. And it was really not until 1987 when things actually started changing, and they took a much more relaxed approach.
All right, pull up, Mr. Officer. Was he skanking? Skanking hard. Are you going to do us another skank, Mr. Officer? He was skanking hard. Can you, Mr. Officer, that's what we like. All right, so come on Instagram this policeman skank, please. Let's Instagram.
Wobble, wobbin', ass so fat, all these bitches pussy is bobbin'. Bitches, I'm
Yo, we got a policeman over there with some moves, fam.
Oi, he's not fucking feds. He is not feds. He ain't police. You must be an undercover raver, because you ain't an undercover officer. Make some noise for the undercover raver! He could never be feds.
Do it again,
He could never be 5-0.
Do it again.
wobble, wobbin', ass so fat, all these bitches pussies is throbbing.
Go 5-0. Go 5-0.
These days, more than 15,000 police officers and stewards work together to make sure that this is a safe environment. The clean-up operation is just as impressive. Teams working through the night to collect over 300 tonnes of waste, ensuring that the streets are clean for the next morning. As for the local community, the carnival remains true to its roots while embracing change. Notting Hill has transformed from a neighbourhood where Caribbean immigrants first settled in the 1950s into one of London's most expensive areas. But for those 2 days, the streets return to their carnival heritage. The event showcases London at its multicultural best. You'll find traditional Caribbean elements alongside influences from across London's diverse communities. Whether you're watching one of the 50 steel pan bands compete, or you may be following a sound system through the streets. I remember I used to follow the Pendragon sound system back in the mid-90s. That was fantastic. I loved it, with Mark Sinclair playing on the decks and we all dancing. In fact, you can see a bit of footage here of I am there in that crowd, but you wouldn't recognise me, and I'm very, very blurry. So there you go. We're going to finish our drinks here, and we're going to head over to Holland Park Station, which is where we're going to be ending this episode. See you there, and cheers. Here we are. We're at Holland Park Station, and it's our final station, and this is also where we're going to be ending this episode. We're back on the Central Line now, which means we're also in Fare Zone 2, and that also means that it's open on the weekends 24 hours, which is quite nice for the local people. And it's also one of the other interesting things about this station. This has a flat roof because the developers thought that they could build commercial units on top. But in the 125 years that this place has been built, that has yet to happen. And it's quite strange because it's not listed or anything, so you'd have thought that maybe someone would have built something up there. But just like all the other stations in this area, there are no toilets. And again, there's no step-free access, no accessibility, no wheelchairs can come here. Awful, really. So, well, that's kind of the end of this episode. The next episode is going to be a special all about Grenfell Tower, the very, very shocking experience
And after that, we're going to have another special where we're going to be talking about all that countercultural stuff that we've been hinting at and showing you little snippets of. But that really, all that's really left now for us to do is to tell you that we're next going to be in Beckton. So we're going to be checking out the sewage works, which is you must be excited. I'm really hoping that we're going to get special access into the sewage area. But so that takes us now, that we're going to now say, till next time, bye! See you in Beckton.
Oh, God.
Next time on Love Your London, we'll be doing a special on the horrendous Grenfell Tower disaster, speaking about what happened, what is happening to the tower, what the local residents and victims' families would have preferred to have happened. Plus, we'll take a tour of the memorial wall and speak to local resident and activist who was there when it happened, Elizabeth Harrington Stravalavdis, who also happens to be my girlfriend 35 years ago. Small world. Oh, and we're busy filming in Beckton already. Here's us having an exclusive free guided visit around the disused gasworks. Take that, Museum of Brands. Meanies. From Acton Town to Wimbledon, from Brixton to beyond, love your London, have a banana.